Ready? All right, well, I'm going to call the meeting to order. My name is Michael Baldwin, and I am the chair for the meeting tonight. So we will start with the roll call.
Roll call. So first Commissioner Michael Baldwin.
Here.
Karen Bridges. Here. Sucy Collazo. Here. Pat Gacoscos has been excused. Lily May. Here. Cynthia Hagedis is here for Alan Riffer and Albany. And Doreen Wehrenberg. Wehrenberg. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
So tonight's meeting is a special meeting, not one of our regular meetings. We are here at the request of Supervisor Haggerty for one item only, and that is to review a potential partnership with Discover Books, item number 1 on the calendar. Because it's a special meeting and not a regular meeting, our public comments are going to be limited to that item itself. We won't be hearing any comments on anything else, just that particular item. You can save those for our next regular meeting in July. So we will also, well, that is pretty much that. So we'll start with item number 1, the review of potential partnership for Discover Books for the handling of Alameda County Library discarded materials.
Good evening, Library Commissioners. Carmen Martinez, your Interim County Librarian. And as Commissioner Baldwin mentioned, we are here to review a potential contract with Discover Books, which is a company currently in business with other libraries in the Bay Area to literally handle all of the discarded books that the library and other materials that the library no longer uses for various reasons. It's been a little bit of a long journey to this report. We met with the Board of Supervisors in their closed session retreat to review several options for how to re-look at the library's discard policy, and they chose Discover Books as the option that they thought would work best for the whole entire county library system. So I will, is it okay if I ask one gentleman to come up first, because he's very short of time. We have one speaker card.
Yeah, it's your presentation.
And that is
speaker cards.
Oh, the speaker cards are the orange cards on the table over there. So you can just fill them out, bring them up, we'll put you in the queue.
So we welcome Victor Aparicio, the CEO of Discover Books. You want to just come on up and you can stand right here and say what you're going to say.
Thank you. Hi. Good evening, council members. Thank you for allowing me to, commissioners, for allowing me to,
if you could speak a
to
little
speak.
bit louder.
Yeah, my name is Victor, and what I basically do is, just to clarify, I'm the marketing manager here in this sector of California. Just here to briefly tell you a little bit more about Discover Books and what you have read. Mainly, we have focused in working primarily with many libraries locally, here all the way from Sacramento to the corridor, in Gilroy and Santa Rosa. So we're pretty much been very instrumental in working with a lot of libraries. Diverting a lot of books from landfills is our primary mission. One of the things that we have been focusing on this year is to see how we can incorporate a logistics program, which is what we've been working on, where we provide libraries bin options where they can deposit a lot of these books, and we're able to get these diverted off from landfills. So that is pretty much in general what I wanted to express, and if you guys have any other questions, I'll be more than open to express that. Thank you.
So thank you, Victor. What we'd like to do now then is have our Deputy Director, Cindy Chadwick, go into walk you through the proposal, the Discover Books at Alameda County Library. Cindy?
Yes, thank you, Carmen. I believe this is part of your packet here, the blue packet, and Marion, do we have we have packets over there for the public as well on that table if you're interested in following along. There is a page in the little packet that says proposals on the front of it that's headed up. It's called Discover Books via the Alameda County Library Foundation. So I'm just going to walk through this document briefly. As Victor was saying, Discover Books is a local company from Livermore, California, and their mission is to divert books from landfills. And we are interested in developing a partnership with them because they match the county culture of transparency, fiscal stewardship, and environmental protections. The way that we are using or will use Discover Books will be as part of our deselection process when materials are removed from our catalog. One of the things that's really been a benefit of the public process we've had around weeding and discarding over the last many months is that we realized we didn't have procedures for deselection or for taking items out of the collection. We didn't have clear procedures for our staff of what happens once a book leaves our shelves and where it goes from there. So we've been able to start developing those deselection procedures, but a missing piece in those was the last stop, and that is what happens when we've made through several channels, but right before it hits the recycle bin. And Discover Books has been a missing piece, we think, in that. The second paragraph in this document talks a little bit about what happens with these books. First thing is, after they've been through our system and been redeployed to other libraries, they're offered to our jail services and to our library branches for program use. And then they have been offered to the Friends of the Library at all the various branches. And then at that point, they would be offered to Discover Books. So it really is just a stopgap between, again, what will happen between the books and the recycle bin. So there are many pros of Discover Books that we outlined here. The library will not be charged for the service and actually receive a nominal donation back from the books. Discover Books will coordinate directly with nonprofits, and that's a definite advantage for us. We have many nonprofits that come to us wanting to use our recycled books or discarded books, and really sending them to a central place will give them a better shopping experience. They'll just have more to look at and choose from. So we like the idea of nonprofits working directly with Discover Books. They are also the local industry standard. They partner with many Friends of Library groups throughout the Bay Area, including Sunnyvale, Napa, Solano, Marin, Sacramento, and Contra Costa Friends. And we like the fact that they will pick up books from library administration directly, and we don't have to haul books anywhere. The cons of Discover Books is on the second page of that, and the main thing that we were somewhat initially concerned about, but really have gotten sign-off from Supervisor Haggerty and the board, is that Discover Books is a for-profit company. They are completely transparent about that. They sell these books online, and that's where the money that would come back comes from. But again, it's as a last stop. And another part of this is that as a government agency, we can't directly give books to a for-profit company. These are the resources of the county. So we need to give them to a nonprofit. In this case, it would be our nonprofit arm, which is the Alameda County Library Foundation. So we are going to be involving our foundation and spoke with the executive director of the foundation, and she's on board with this. Just talked with her this afternoon. So we'll be working with her, and how it would work is we would give the books to the foundation, and they would have a contract with Discover Books. And the only other real con for us is Discover Books is an incomplete solution. As I'm not sure if Victor mentioned, but what they do is specialize in books. We have other materials at Alameda County Library, including magazines, newspapers, and audiovisual materials. Those would have to continue to be processed and discarded with our property and salvage guidelines for the county. So Discover Books won't be able to help us out with those. But by and large, it's a giant solution for us. It really gives just one more way for these books to continue having a life, and we like that. And we're really optimistic about entering into this partnership and the possibility of that.
That basically, commissioners, is our report. You do have the written document in your packet, so you can review it, you can ask us questions, but we tried to keep it succinct. This is a special meeting with a one-item agenda, so we can open it up now. The chair can open it up to questions or whatever you'd like to do to speakers. It's your
Well, first we're going to start with the other commissioners. So do we have any questions for?
Yes, actually, it's, oh, sorry. Who starts?
I'll start.
You guys
We'll start this in.
There we go.
So I had a special request from the Albany Friends of the Library, and they wanted to be assured that they would be able to see the discards prior to going to discover books, that they could use them in the Friends of the Library book sale to raise money for Albany.
Yes, I can assure Cynthia, the Friends of the Library for Albany and the other friends that our process as we're developing it is redeployment to our jail services and then to the Friends and then to Discover Books. So Friends will still be ahead of Discover Books.
And will the books all be in a central location, or, so?
Yeah, that I'm not sure about, how we're gonna handle discards, whether it's going to happen by branch or centrally, and we're working on that right now. So, but the Friends will all have a shot at the books before Discover Books. I know that.
Okay, great, thank you.
My question's on the material here at the background. I was flipping through, and on the second paragraph, it says, we're happy to pick up book sale leftovers, but pay slightly less for them, given the picked over status. I mean, I'm not understanding, that doesn't really apply to us? I mean, it sounds like we corral all the books that, are going to be discarded. It's Discover Books.
Property and salvage.
There's no page numbers or anything.
Payment for ex-library and donated materials.
Are you referencing the Discover Books
Yes.
page? Okay.
Yeah, it might be just promo material here, but I'm just trying to understand. It sounds like as the library system is, we gather the books that we want to donate. It's held in one particular spot. The Friends of the Library gets to review first, gets first right of refusal on them, right? I wasn't understanding as far as this. I mean, it seems like there was selective on the type of books they were taking, but
Discover Books, you mean?
yes.
That's not my understanding, in terms of selective about it, but, Victor maybe can address that best, yeah.
First, to answer your question, we can also provide books out to Friends of the Library when, prior to them having a book sale, if they need additional books for their sale, we can also arrange that and deliver that to a specific branch that is having a book sale on a specific date. To answer your question, there are two types of books that we may collect. Some that haven't been sorted out, so the library may have a book pickup that's needed. And the second one is after your book sales, you may have discards. These discards are basically books that have been already sorted and primarily either been damaged or may have been not applicable for our system. And not applicable means encyclopedias, Bibles, that we state that at the bottom. So there's very minimal quantity, but we want to make sure that those actually are not applicable for the program. But we will still take them, just not at that same price or nominal fee away.
So for instance, if pages are torn out or something like that.
Exactly. And just to clarify a few things, we will be as transparent as we can in working with each additional branch in case they also desire amounts of books, not just for their book sales, but also on a constant basis.
And one last question, you keep mentioning a gaylord. What's a gaylord?
Yeah, it's a very good box. It basically is think of a big carton box that's 5 foot in diameter.
Okay, storage space.
You
Okay.
can store up to 500 books on an average. Yeah.
All right.
Good question.
Go ahead. Well,
Actually, the only
work our way
question
down.
I have is for Mr. Aparicio. Now, in other counties, do you pick up at each individual library, or do they all send it out to a central location and pick up?
Both. Some libraries, some branches prefer to work independently by themselves, and we are able to do that, and we are able to send our logistics team drivers and trucks to pick up on either a specific schedule. And some other branches do prefer them to be all in one.
Is there a price difference if you have to go to different libraries or to one central location?
No, especially for Alameda County, it wouldn't apply just because we are already local, and so it wouldn't make
questions here. I know that the city of Newark's had a little bit of experience with this kind of thing because we've been dealing with World Books. And I guess my first question would be, how do you see yourself compared to World Books? I'm sure you're familiar with them.
Yes, we have seen some presence with them here. It's mostly in the East Coast that they have been working with in the libraries. What we have done internally is provide a service that's more direct to libraries. And I understand that you know, it's apples to oranges. I don't want to compare the logistics from them. Is, if I understand correctly, is they have the friends have to pack books in boxes and ship them out to a hub nearby. And basically that process in itself is very tedious for many friends, we found out. On our end, we collect books directly. We will have a truck and our drivers pick up those books. So it definitely cuts costs as far as shipping and so forth. And more importantly is the turnaround is much faster. We will issue payments and processing within 30 days. So it wouldn't take any more than that. And I understand from my experience that that is a much more faster turnaround than our competitors, I would say.
Well, a number of the books that we used were not just discarded, they were also books that had been donated. Now, is this going to be a situation where it's just books that are discarded from the library?
I apologize.
Just books discarded from the library. It's not going to be other books that the friends haven't been able to sell, so therefore they're willing to contribute to this process.
Yeah, we'll take all books.
They'll take anything.
Available.
They'll take anything.
Yeah.
Okay, okay. And what is the length of time that the friends would have to evaluate whether or not they want to keep the books? You know, we have a pretty good sale with children's books, I know. What is the time frame for that?
As long as you need, yeah.
As long as we need, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, okay. Okay, and as far as evaluation, now is this staff? I want to make sure, because we have had some issues, I know with World, it was taking quite a bit of time for the staff and our volunteers to go through the books and pack them up in the boxes. Now, you're not coming in and packing them up, are you? No.
No, so we have, thank you for asking that. We have many ways to work with different groups. Some groups prefer to have that Gaylord, the big box, and they will place all those books in there and we'll be able to collect them at the time of pickup. Other friends simply rely on having or hosting a book bin, and we're able to service that, whether it's on a weekly or bi-monthly basis, whenever it's full.
And then, of course, my last question is, how long have you been in existence?
Yeah, we were funded in November 2000, and actually 3 years ago, November, so 2010, November 2010. I apologize. Thank you.
Hi, welcome, Victor. This is actually my first meeting here today, too. So I'm representing Fremont, and I'm trying to understand your business model a little bit better. My former life before being on the city council, I actually was on the school board. And so I'd gone through some of the processes in terms of when we had gone through a textbook adoption and looking at the materials, how do we remove those? We thought it was very important, since it's Fremont taxpayer money, to at least offer that first to our citizens. So we actually had some students do their service hours and help us set up almost a virtual bookstore, and was able to create an area where the parents were able to walk in, especially because I was just talking to Cindy earlier about how during the summer months, a lot of times the kids go through summer slide, and to give them the option to look through the books and either do remedial work, and because the workbooks don't go bad, the consumables, spelling didn't change, grammar didn't change, and if not, also then go ahead. So we actually had a lot of our students walk through that process. We had an excess and obsolete policy developed for the school district, and then also that books, which was very successful. We had about 1,500 parents come on a Saturday morning and come and take the books themselves. To understand a little bit more, I've seen some of the stories that were in the media and have greatly concerned me. because I know that we've worked very closely, whether it's through school clubs, through service efforts from students, to either collect donations of new and gently used books for our schools. Some of them need programs after school, or in particular here in Fremont, we have the Fremont Family Resource Center, which is a great service for a lot of people. But when you come into the waiting area, which looks beautiful, there are books, and I've filled it up before with students over the years, and it's hard because the students come in and they look at it and they take the books, and you don't want to be like on the way out, give me back the book. So it's one of the things that we constantly replenish. So I'm hoping that when we look through some of these things that we consider those options too, and that your organization will work with our local services to ensure that the human relations part, that we offer those also in addition. I also was thinking in particular when I was listening to discussions about some of the senior periodicals or multilingual ones, because we are so fortunate in Fremont in the Bay Area to have such diversity of bilingual literature, and to be able to offer those to some of those resources I think would be important. So those are some of the things I'm hoping. I don't know what your policy is because you're a relatively new organization. What type of outreach have you done in those areas?
Excellent, thank you. Actually, bilingual myself, I grew up, in media sales school, so I understand the importance of, having English being my second language, and the importance of reading and so forth. So, the good thing is we're a new company that is changing, and we'll certainly be able to adapt to a lot of these new programs and be able to be more instrumental in being able to help you. And if there are some schools that are interested in receiving books on our end, we'll be more than happy to do that, as well as after-school programs that may focus on literacy programs as well.
So could you explain to me a little bit of the business model in terms of if somebody were to be interested, a school were to be interested, or a nonprofit like Fremont Family Resource Center, would they have to go to a central location? Is it something that you would provide access to? I'm not sure where you're located. Is it something that they have set hours, or like a bookstore hour for them to come by?
Yeah, the logistics will be very simple. I probably will be the primary contact for anyone internally that is in need or is willing to participate in such a program. I can have our logistics team be able to, in a nutshell, deliver books out to a location, whether it's a school or an organization, and be able to provide some books in for them. As far as the books goes, it would just be a matter of us working internally to determine what type of books they'll be in need of and the quantities.
Would that be something where they could then visit your location and pick what would best suit their entity or their services needs, and then have it delivered, or would it be something, and I was also trying to understand, would there be a fee, or how does that work?
Thank you.
For them?
There will be no fee whatsoever. They can contact me directly. Again, I'll be able to work with them internally.
And may I ask where your office is based?
We are situated in Liverpool, California.
Okay. Do you have any of the books that, as you're collecting them, I know it would probably be very difficult because they're coming in mass, cataloged or anything, so they have some idea of what's available?
No, unfortunately not, but what we have done in the past is, for the most part, broadly selected books out that are applicable for middle schools, elementary schools,
Okay.
also fictional for the programs that they have.
I guess this is a question for the overall board too. I heard somebody ask earlier about donations, and sometimes donations are given directly to the entity. So in that case, if they're given directly to a library, whether it's Fremont, Newark, or the other ones, are those then first offered to the friends of those libraries, or are they offered at large?
I think we first offer them to the friends, don't we?
Okay.
Right,
Because I just think that in spirit of
To the
whoever the
friends.
donation was given to, that
Right.
it should first be
Right.
priority given to those as an
They're
option.
first offered to the friends, and actually sometimes don't we absorb them into the collection if they're titles we can use? And I'm looking at our, never mind, it's okay. I saw your face.
Rarely.
Yeah, sometimes we'll keep one or two, but they are
Okay.
offered to the friends.
Okay. Of the library where they're given?
Friends
or-
of the-
Or just friends at whole, as a whole?
Well, each library has its friends
Friends,
group, so
okay.
that friends
That
group.
friends group, okay, thank you.
Yeah, I know that in the past, that the library, especially when they've got like brand new bestsellers that have come out, made an effort to put those into their library collection. However, it turned out that it was so demanding on the staff time of the library that it was more expensive in terms of staff time to put these discarded books into the library and check and see where they're needed than it was to just give them to the friends. So we've always, as a friends group in Newark, we've always gotten we have some really great books. My question would be, I know for the gentleman here, is there a time frame, have we established a time frame, so like a 6 month, a year, to see if this is gonna work out really well for us, and if it doesn't, we can say, hey, we tried, it didn't work out for us.
We haven't entered into a formal agreement.
Okay.
We are doing our due diligence, and at the Board of Supervisors' request, we are previewing our commission. We're previewing this contract, potential contract, with all of you tonight. So we don't have all the logistics and the details and the legalese. We're still on this is step 3.
Well, I know
So
that
we will have.
Newark is a small library, and we are sinking in books.
Right.
Sinking. It is very difficult.
I know.
We don't have the storage, and I'm sure some of the other libraries have the same problem, to maintain them for too lengthy a time to see if we can sell them in our
Working as
book
fast
sales.
as we can on this
Yeah.
to bring a solution
Yeah.
to both the community and our branch
Yeah, so
managers.
to me, this sounds like a good alternative, given that we've had a little bit of experience with another company and it worked.
Compare.
We didn't get rich, but it did work out well as far as getting rid of our, donating our books.
Just to answer your question, there will be no contract that is signed, whether we can do this on a month-to-month basis and eventually keep the doors open and see if this is working for everyone.
Okay. I think that finishes my questions.
Did you have more?
I had a general one, I guess, just for the process for Carmen. So this is something we have not done in the past. Do we look to see, no offense to Mr. Victor from Discover, do we look to see what other libraries have done in their area and regionally in terms of what other services have been offered, and how do we come to this decision of selecting Discover Books as opposed to other entities?
We did, and we presented the board with, I don't want to call it a best practice because everyone thinks their own library is doing it in the best manner. For example, Contra Costa. Contra Costa does a huge Friends of the Library book sale. I believe it's in August. I think it's at each branch, I can't remember. But after that book sale, they do a public giveaway, and they give away everything that's left to the public. Then Victor swoops in and takes what's left of that. So that's Contra Costa, and we couldn't find any other libraries that do it that way, at least in the Northern California regional area, of which we're part of a consortium. I don't remember how Berkeley does it. San Francisco, of course, has their huge annual book sale at Fort Mason. They make a lot of money. It's a huge community effort, but they're all sold. All the books are sold. So it just depends, but we did find in our research that many libraries now end up calling Discover Books for the last step in the life of that discarded book.
I was also listening to, I apologize, from Newark, Commissioner from Newark, talk about how there's such a dearth of books there. And whether or not, I know my daughter and many other children have volunteered over the years here for service lighting, especially in the summer. Is there something that the students can help in terms of service, in terms of sorting, or, some shows if they're older, they're in high school, to be able to look and say, okay, here's the ones that are probably more, not that they're experts in that, but to help you go through some of that inventory that's all backed up
Yeah,
there.
we get into labor issues when we bring in volunteers, especially young children. There are labor issues involved with handling our materials, even our discards. So that's a different conversation.
Okay, I was just curious because
No,
I know many of
that's
them
fine.
volunteer and they file books and other things sort of
Yeah.
in the summer.
But I'm
with
sure there are
children's games.
projects that we could set up if necessary.
We've had volunteers, we've had youth volunteers. I'm not sure that youth volunteers are the most appropriate young people to make a decision on what's sellable and what is not sellable and what's in demand. You know, like we get, what, boxes of Harlequin, called Harlequin?
Yeah.
Romantic, no. And I wouldn't have thought there was any demand for them at all, but there's a whole population out there that doesn't read anything else. So it's really hard to say.
Thank you, I'm just trying to learn a little bit about this and
Sure.
understand the formal process.
Sure.
So is there, that came up at our last meeting, is there a formal process or policy on how, or selection on how what is discarded and what is donated and everything?
Deselection policy.
It's in the packet.
It is, yes.
Under background, material selection policy.
We have a packet here that's called Material Selection Policy. So again, this was the documentation we had so far, which talks more on the front end about how things get into our collection. What we found when we were doing this whole public process is that we didn't have the other end, which was what happens when
Yeah,
things leave
no,
the shelf.
exactly, I read this and it's acquiring, but.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
will this be expanded then?
We are definitely gonna do procedures, the deselection procedures. I don't know that we're gonna expand the policy.
It would be in addition to the policy.
I would think so, yeah, we've gotta figure that out, exactly what we need, so.
I had a couple of questions. People were mentioning, a lot of times the Friends of the Libraries get books donated to them directly. It never goes through the library itself. So if there were a Friends of the Library book sale and they had leftover books, including ones donated to the library, would that be an issue from the Friends of the Library donating to the foundation to get the books to Discover Books? It wouldn't matter.
Yeah, Discover Books is willing to take, whether it's Friends donated books or books from the library collection.
And the
So-
Friends are all their own nonprofit entities.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had one question for you. Discover Books, you've been around since 2010. Are you a public company or are you still private?
We're a private company.
Private. Do you ever disclose your financial data? Just as a general rule, that you probably don't, but you know, you never know. So, and also, I've seen some of the library systems you guys have worked with. Are there any systems you work with that are a comparable size to Alameda County? Because I've seen that you work with some that are much bigger, like Seattle, and some that are much smaller. But is there anything in our general wheelhouse?
We worked in various ways with different libraries.
Right.
One of the biggest pros that we can do is eventually adapt logistically to a smaller library, whether a specific group, whether it's the library itself and the Friends of the Library that have different logistics. An example would be a smaller library that may require us to do a limited number of books pick up on a weekly basis. We're able to do it because it allows us to get from point A to point B, but we're also able to service many libraries in the process.
Okay.
Whereas some other libraries may require us to just simply pick up in one branch and service 5 different libraries, and we also do that. Yeah.
And the last thing I had for you was, I've seen in the past, Discover Books has done self-service drop-off kiosks. Is that something you're considering in this area?
Yeah, we have basically donation boxes where you're able to have different kiosks. We ask different libraries if they want to host one, they're able to do that themselves as well. So yeah.
Now, I know a lot of the jurisdictions would prohibit that, so we want to make sure we look at something like that before any go in, but that's down the road. Anything else?
Right. When they pick up these books at our libraries, they would be going to Livermore? Is that where we're going? You're sending? Okay.
Don't you have a warehouse in Livermore?
Yes.
Yes.
we
Yeah.
have one warehouse.
Any other questions, comments, concerns? Okay, well, I think we have some speaker cards here, and I'll remind the speakers that we want to keep the comments limited to whether or not Discover Books is the way we want to go. So we're going to have a 3-minute limit on the comments, And the first one I have is Dorothy. Dorothea, I'm sorry.
I'm Dorothea Durenz, and I'm with Library Book Savers of Alameda County. It's very disappointing that this meeting has been limited to supposedly the hiring of an outside corporation to take care of these book discards. The elephant in the room is the book discards in the first place, and the continuous excuse that you don't have enough employees to move books from one library to another. We have libraries that are practically empty now, and that was due to this massive weeding that went on. So the issue is you have many books that belong on the shelves. You just quoted yourself. You said, give the books a chance to have a life on another life. Well, why is it that if somebody loves Harlequin books, why aren't they staying on the shelf? But the truth is that many books are pulled off the shelf without consideration for their value to the collection. And that is why we have massive numbers of books that are getting thrown away. The librarians in the library are not doing their jobs according to the breadth and depth of the collection and the materials collection policy, which is on the website, is in this packet, but we know that when you throw out 400,000 books, that you're not following the 1999 materials selection policy that the Board of Supervisors passed. So you can pretend all you want. We know for a fact that you do not want to have transparency around what you do because you refuse to use the software to keep track of the books you send out. So we still would like to know, what are the books that you're going to be sending to this corporation to sell for a profit when you say, we don't have enough staff, we don't have enough money to take care of the books to make sure the libraries conform to what Franklin Roosevelt told us, which is that libraries are supposed to keep books in them for us to learn from so that we can be educated voters in a democracy. And here we are having all these books thrown away without consideration for these issues. So you as ACLAC, I beseech you, because you are the only body that represents the public, and you can talk and say that you're doing your jobs. We need to know that you are doing your jobs. Please make a motion to bring up the real issue at your next meeting, which is the elephant in the room. Why is Alameda County throwing out thousands of books, leaving shelves empty? That is the elephant in the room that we need to address for us citizens who pay for this library. Thank you.
Okay, before we go on with the public comment, I'd like to remind you that the comments need to be limited to the item on the agenda, which is specifically whether or not Discover Books is a route that we should take for the processing of materials after they've been removed from the collection. Nothing else.
A corporation
Nothing else.
benefiting from the library.
Hey, next one up I have is Trish Thomas. Would Trish Thomas like to make a comment on whether or not Discover Books would be a good option for the library?
I'll stick to this.
Thank you, ma'am.
As I can. Discover Books is a for-profit corporation that sells the library books it gets for free. This was written before earlier. Two or three, this is Amazon and eBay, they're being sold on. 2 or 3 for-profit corporations are benefiting from our tax dollars. Discover Book Corporation, Amazon and eBay are thereby able to sell the very books that we hope to have available to us through the library. Or, of course, we can buy them from them if we want to. The public will continue to have no access to information about how the ACL manages the collection, as the books will be hauled away out of sight. The ACL stated in an email to a library patron that it has no intention of keeping track of the books they throw out. They feel they have no obligation to the public to keep track of how tax funds are spent. This is contrary to the way any efficient organization is run. The fact that the ACL administrators are hired by the Board of Supervisors to be librarians doesn't mean that they are unanswerable to the public who pays their salaries. We urge ACLAC to use its influence and make a resolution that would require the ACL to keep records that are open to the public. Without Discover Books carting off our books the Alameda County Library administrators might have to find a way to keep older and practically new books on the shelves, which would allow the reading public to have access to them. It could find a way to store them and make them available to the public. Perhaps the 7.9% raise the administrators are requesting for themselves could instead be used to rent space to store our valuable book collections for public use. I urge the Library Commission to vote for a return to the very democratic material selections policy of 1999 that would guarantee us the right to older book knowledge, newer books, and digital books, and stop the constant outflow of books that makes the contract.
That's 3 minutes.
Sorry,
All right, thank you.
necessary.
All right,
Yeah, yeah. You don't have to be that rigid, Mr. Baldwin.
but tonight, I'm
It's an
afraid I
insult to
am.
the public because we haven't really had many chances
My
to
next
express
commenter
ourselves.
is Guy. I'm afraid I can't read your last name.
You made a drafter, you can't read my printing, huh? You know, I've been a patron here for many decades, and I think that the weeding program is extending to purchases and donations as well. It's being limited to a 3-year
Keeping in mind the
period.
topic on hand, of course.
Yeah, keeping on the topic at hand, I think that as far as Discover books acquiring the library, we did discard. I think there's an organization that needs to discard even more. I think it's Fremont Public Library. I think that the empty shelves and the half-empty shelves could do with a few more books in them. So maybe if you weed them off the shelves, you might want to consider putting them back on the shelves, because patrons like me actually want to read some of those books. And they look for them, and they find in the catalog that they're listed as checked shelf, and then when they go find them on the shelf, they're told by the reference librarians that they're misplaced. And a week later, they're still misplaced. And then a month later, well, sir, it's still misplaced. You know, maybe it's hiding back there somewhere, but there's not enough books left for them to hide all those misplaced books. Find out that they're actually missing, and they can't be ordered because, why? Months later, you find out that it says on order, but you find out it really wasn't ordered. So maybe the weeding process is causing books not to be placed in the library, or even donations to be placed in the library, because they're maybe been published over 3 years ago. And the whole, society doesn't recreate itself every 3 years. That's the problem.
Okay, the next one I have is Chris Svetliv, and just to reiterate, we're talking about Discover books only. The weeding process and policies is a whole another topic for another day. I appreciate there is an issue, but today's topic specifically is forget the weeding process, it's what we do after. So just a gentle reminder.
Okay. My name is Chris Savetic. I'm a Fremont resident, taxpayer, heavy library user, and an Alameda County Library employee. I'm here today to ask the Commission to help save our collection from severe weeding and discarding of our library materials. While at this library, I hope that Commission members take a few minutes to browse the second floor to notice the empty shelves and the shelves that are only partially filled. The collection is shockingly limited for any library, let alone the largest one in the system, and might give some insight as to why we are so outraged. I'd also like you to take a glance at a few of the materials that were rescued from recycling dumpsters and given to me prior to the installation of locks and fences on the pretense of concern for public safety. These are relatively new books entered into the system between 2010 and 2013 and are all in good condition or excellent condition. The public appreciates the programming, audio-visual materials, electronic books, and the opportunity to try technical devices, but when a person walks into a library, they expect to see a selection of books available on all subjects to be used for the purpose of pleasure, research, and homework. They expect to find books for do-it-yourself repairs, cooking, crafting, literature, science, history, and so on. The book selection of the ACL libraries is becoming very limited. Books are being discarded that are not always available, in electronic form or are out of print. We need to preserve the collection to ensure we will still have the materials available to us to learn from and enjoy. I am asking you please to make the changes needed to accommodate everyone's perceptions and desires for the ideal library in our communities. At the Fremont Library Advisory Commission on Monday, Cindy Chadwick advised, and I quote, "We realized what we didn't have was what we're calling deselection or weeding procedures for what actually happens to books when they need to come out of the collection," unquote. I'd like to know why the deselection procedures are only being created after rather than before the destruction of almost 400,000 library materials.
Ma'am, that's, thank you. Okay, now before we go into the next commentator, I'd like to remind you yet again, the discussion should be focusing not on the weeding policy itself, but on the final disposition of discovered books, of which the previous comment did not mention at all. So, my next comment is from Steve Wasserman, who specifically does want to speak to the discovered deal.
Michael, get the camera ready.
Wait, hold on. I don't want to short your time, hold on. Okay, but please, keep on.
Get the hammer ready. I can't find it in my heart to express a great deal of zeal to criticize the discovered deal per se. My concern is much more heartfelt to me as to why the books, how many books are being discarded, why they're being discarded.
I'm gonna have to cut you off.
Bang the hammer.
How about that? We want to keep it on point. You said your top. You said your opinion on
just why this is relevant.
Well, I understand why it's relevant, but today's item is not about that relevance. Today's item is about the discovered book deal in particular. So please save your comment for the July meeting.
It's been put to us.
Yeah, but they're going to benefit from the discovered books, so it seems like it'd be the same topic if you ask me.
This is relevant. It's been put to us, the discovered deal.
Ma'am, you're gonna have to say that's not appropriate today.
It's been put to us that the discard workload necessitates the discovered deal. It therefore follows that if the discard workload was less, it might call into question the necessity to employ discovery. That's number one. Number two, this board member brought up material selection question. It's material selection is in this information packet. So for those reasons, I suggest that discussion of weeding is appropriate. But I respect your authority on this, and if you want to call me to order, very well.
Well, you're also out of time, so you know, it works out that way. But we understand your point.
Extra time?
No, thank you. I respectfully decline. My next customer is Rob Brown. Hopefully speak towards discovered books.
On the subject of discovered books, I think you're very premature in bringing it up. In a long career as a literary scholar at the University of California's Bancroft Library, editing the comprehensive edition of the works of Mark Twain, I came to know well the extraordinary value of many little red volumes shelved among their more popular neighbors. Volumes that contain insights into any given subject, while perhaps not fashionable, but are the sole repositories of essential information not available elsewhere. If these reports on the indiscriminate book dumping that this system has engaged in are even partially accurate, our library's collections are in serious jeopardy. A policy based on the myopic pretext that a book with a recent rate of circulation below some arbitrary standard should be considered for all time to be of no further use is a policy that guarantees the dumbing down of our cultural and intellectual heritage through the permanent loss of information. Discovered books should go elsewhere to do its business until we've come up with a respectable policy for maintaining the size of our collections. lists of books in this disposed of were apparently never submitted to the public or to specialists in their respective fields before they were dumped. A small coterie of top library administrators is said to have made the disposal decisions, even ignoring the advice of librarians who are best acquainted with the interests of the community. It's stunning to learn that in their imperial hubris, these administrators apparently have not even kept records of the books they've dumped. I fully understand the library's need for a conscientious policy of the acquisition, a well-informed and restrained policy for accommodating new materials without thoughtlessly depleting the old. The reported policy of our county does not follow such standards. This policy represents a deep violation of the public trust.
Thank you.
I hope you'll rapidly and solidly find a more enlightened policy before you proceed to any further discussions with Victor or his bill. Thanks.
All right. And my next one, the next one would be Velasco Capitani. Is that close? All right, hold on a second.
Is the gentleman from Discover Books still here?
Oh, no, he's not.
No, he's gone. Okay. I'd like to notice first that Discover Books doesn't even have a mailing address here on their thing. They got a toll-free number and a web address for two people, not this gentleman. The idea that oh, their address is?
It's in Livermore.
Oh, that's my card.
Oh, I'll use it now. I'll give it back to you. Marketing manager V for CISO, Las Pacios. Okay, so they do have an address. Suite F. I can visit that then. But to give these books away, I know there was some discussion about Friends of the Library. The only saving grace about the library throwing away their book collection is that most of it's gone to the Friends of the Library, where people like myself or other book collectors or people that are interested in rare books can purchase them, hopefully maybe to bring them back to the library someday. And I'd like to mention a little bit about myself. My name is Velasco Capitani. I was hired here as a page at the Fremont, Alameda County Library after going through a test with 300 other people and 2 interviews with county librarians. I was proud to have a job as a page. When they gave me my tag, it said clerical services, which bothered me a little bit. About 2 months into my job, I found out that the library was throwing away large portions of its microfilm collection, which by any standard is not what a library should do, because this is an irreplaceable thing. I mean, this is a huge collection of magazines and periodicals that are on microfilm. So I brought it up to my supervisor, Rosa Haig, and then she brought me to Sally Pine, and they both agreed that, well, that probably wasn't supposed to be done. And Sally Pine's exact words were, Blasco, when this library opened, it was supposed to be a university of the people, but that's no longer the library's mission. And I asked her if this went along with the procedures for discharge with the library, and she said that they probably needed to update their procedures. Well, I was then told to not bring this up in public or to anybody else in the library system, that they were discarding the microfilm collection, or else I'd lose my job. I never brought it up again, but I lost my job 2 months later. It's really one of the worst moments of my life, probably the lowest periods of my life. If you give this stuff if this stuff should just go straight to the Friends of the Library. If you're really going to keep discarding books, give it to the Friends of the Library so that they could sell it to the public that's losing the books, and then give the rest of the crap to this Discover Books guy. But I'll tell you what, right now, if I find out anybody is standing in front of me, and I'd like to know, if you guys could take a moment, what your academic credentials are for making decisions about a library. Because I had a master's degree in English literature, I had a bachelor's as well. And I'd just like to know, I'm sure, with all due respect, that most of you have academic credentials for making decisions for a library and library systems. But if you give this to Discover Books, I swear to God, I'll find out if any of you have any connection with this company that's just going to be ripping off the patrons of this system.
That's 3 minutes ago. Okay, and my last comment card, it would be Mr. Robert McCracken.
Okay. A question, if you could, this is strictly for clarification. It was mentioned earlier, there's a prioritization as to what is to be done with materials that are determined to be discards. The first was, of course, Friends of the Library, and at the end of the chain is Discover. Could you list in order, please, exactly what other organizations are involved? and why they are determined in that order, and what measures are taken to determine why they were selected in that order.
Was that all you had to say?
Yes.
Okay. Great. Yeah. Respectfully, we can't engage the public in the comments, so we can't answer that. But if you read the packet over there, it does list them in order.
I thought if something's on the agenda that you can engage the public in comments.
All right. So,
Could you
with
please
that,
clarify that, Mr. Baldwin?
What is your job, just to stonewall, Baldwin? That's
I
just
would
what you do,
appreciate
stonewall?
it.
Or do you want to engage the public and let's have a discussion about the best thing for the library? I mean, why did you take this position? Just to be a stonewaller? You can't answer that question. You're not here to answer that
talking
question.
and engaging with the public, so that's all I can say.
Well, why don't you just tell us what your credentials are? What you've done? You got a library degree?
Moving on to the next
Library
item on the
science degree?
agenda,
I don't think so. You
number
check out books often? I don't think so. What's the last novel you read, Baldwin?
Thank you. So the next item on the agenda is our next regular meeting,
novel, thank you.
which we have scheduled for July 1st so far.
We have a commissioner for some of the.
Sure. Do any of the other commissioners have any other final comments for the night on anything that we've discussed?
So what is the plan of action here? I mean, it's not, what's the process here from here on out?
Is it a decision that needs to be made today?
So, as the commission knows, they are advisory to the county library, and we were asked to have this special meeting so that we could apprise you of the Discover books. As you said, their business model, what they do with other libraries, and the board did select the model that Discover Books presents for handling library discards as their preferred option for handling library discards. So I'm repeating myself. So we are doing our homework, we're doing our research on the company, and we have brought this to you for your education and for your comment
Information
tonight. Next steps are I meet with the county administrator to decide if we're going to go to the board again or work through our foundation to engage so that the library's foundation can engage in the contract with Discover Books. So those are the next steps.
Okay.
So you're gonna give this contract to someone who didn't even have the decency to stay here and answer our questions? He didn't care enough to stay?
Thank you.
I don't care what you say. Baldwin, you throw me out. This guy didn't even care enough to stay and answer our questions about his company, and that's who you're gonna give this contract to. Fantastic. You guys should really be proud of yourself.
Sir, thank you. We understand your position.
I'd like to make a few comments tonight because I've been involved with the Friends of the Library or the Newark Library League for over 20 years. And I've spent a considerable amount of time there. And
as a volunteer.
As a volunteer, yes, as a volunteer. That's absolutely right.
Not paid.
Yes. Anyway, I wanted to say that an awful lot of the books that we find getting discarded are like SAT books that are old, books that just are not relevant anymore, computer books, those kinds of things. More recently, the Friends of the Library have stopped selling tapes, or not selling, or trying to sell tapes and videos and things like that because no one is buying them. And so therefore, we are discarding them. Now, I must be at the wrong library because at the Newark Library, our books, there's no room for any new books. What happens, to my understanding, is they buy maybe 10 copies of a bestseller that just came out, a Patterson book or whatever, and after a few months or a year, maybe 1 or 2 people are checking those books out, and they have 8 books that are taking up room there. And so they end up giving those to the Friends. Well, the Friends, we make a diligent effort with several sales during the year to sell these books. But even we are inundated with huge amounts of books and we don't have any place to put them. with that said, I understand why the library needs to make room for newer books. A lot of times, these books, especially the ones that are used by children, are dilapidated. I mean, they're in terrible condition. I'm not saying every book, but I'm saying a good portion of them. We have done some experimenting with not this Discovery company, but with another company. And what we did was we'd try to sell the book at 2 book sales. We'd keep them for 6 months. We'd put them on our standby where people could just come in and pay 50 cents or whatever to get the books. At our sales, at the end of a book sale, we could tell them they could have a whole bag for $1. Take any of the books you want for $1. You can fill up the whole bag. And then after that, we went to half price. We went to the half price store to try and sell them there to some different bookstores, and they didn't want them either. So we ended up giving these away to another company, said that most of those books were not sellable. And if you think every good book is sellable, look on Amazon next time. There's books for 5 cents or 10 cents. I mean, that doesn't, you know, some of our friends have talked about selling books on Amazon. Well, let me tell you, you could put in $100 worth of time to sell a 10-cent book. So the friends have not gone to doing that. So I really wish that you would contribute some ideas on exactly what we can do with these books that we're just that you say we're throwing away, and yet where do we send them? If they go to friends first, then
Those aren't the books that we're talking about.
Yeah, exactly.
We're talking about the
donate. I mean, we're donating them every place we can, and even the people we're donating to don't want
Will
it.
you just look at some of
We
these?
want to talk about out of print where
I'm sorry, that's my comments for tonight. Maybe I'm over the top.
Newark Library has taken books to the fairs to give to children. We've hauled books over, and sometimes the kids don't even want them.
That's not what we're talking about. Those aren't those we're talking about.
Okay, so moving on, do we have any other closing comments? All right.
So, is that
Sorry.
policy that's
It's a-
going to happen
it's a-
before Discover Books gets started?
Public comments closed.
I'm sorry. But I just wanted to speak on behalf of myself and representing the city council.
Could you speak a little louder?
Sure. So for me, this is my first meeting, and I'm trying to understand the different perspectives. I'm certainly aware I am a citizen here, and I've had children who've gone through the library and volunteered here, and I've also been involved with the school district in terms of how we dispose of our books. I know that tonight the focus is on a specific agenda item, and that's what we're trying to focus. I would concur with some of the comments in general, though, because for me, I'm trying to understand how the policy best works. And for me I think it's important for us, whether it's on city council or school board, other things, to have an open transparency in terms of having some delineation. In all fairness, I think that there is some documentation, and we did try, I think earlier Cindy tried to address the prioritization in terms of how it's being given away. The policy in terms of how it's being weeded is something I think hopefully we will have some clarity coming in the near future, because it's something I'd like to understand, especially for myself coming new to this role. I also think it's important, one of the things is that I'm glad that the public took the time to come join us for the meeting to share their feedback, but in all fairness too, for myself coming in at the same time, that it's a recognition that this is a meeting of the commission held in the public. And so we want to partner with you, but I think it's one of the things for me coming into it's interesting because I don't have a previous experience to understand some of the hostility or the strong feelings and animosity. And so hopefully it's something that we can work towards having a good partnership, because the ideal situation is one where we, as responsibility to the public, are able to have these open discussions in a format that encourages partnership and support on how we can address these needs for the community. So again, I appreciate you coming this evening. I'm trying to learn myself as much as possible. I'm trying to stay on focus on the topic. I'm glad that there's no contract. I think one of the things that would help me, and I don't know if that's something that has been discussed with the board, is since they have a warehouse and it's not that far away, the Livermore is not, really quick. But I would personally be interested in visiting if there's something that was possible for me to go and tour and better understand how the business is run. So if that's something that you'd be amiable, that would help me better understand how this works. If there's some examples of how they've managed this with other surrounding school districts or policies on how they've done the weeding and how they, what their model is, how many books come in. Let's say there's 100 books come in, and out of which 30 were sold by the Friends of the Library, and out of which 15 were discarded. Or just understanding how the methodologies work. For me as a business person, in my former life, and then as a parent, just to better understand how the taxpayer money is being
We'd be happy
administered.
to set something like that up and see if we'll poll the commission and see what we can set up.
And again, just to clarify for me, this is advisory, which means that we are not the ones actually voting,
right.
But we're giving recommendations. But I still think hopefully that in our roles and capacities, because we serve in the community as a whole, that hopefully our recommendations will still carry weight.
Carmen? I was gonna say, we are an advisory committee, we are volunteers, and we do our best. I think the weeding process, I think it depends on the person that's doing it in each particular library. The examples that you brought in. I own a business, I have my employees, and I ask my employees to do a certain thing but a certain way. And out of 10, maybe 1 will do it the way I asked, the other 9 will do it the way they want to do it. So if somebody's not constantly watching them, that's how things get misplaced or misfiled or in the wrong batch and they go out. So that has a lot to do with it. It's not always the decisions that they're trying to do are the right decisions, but the one person that is actually doing the job took a wrong decision and put the wrong book out when it shouldn't have been. So
there were thousands of wrong decisions made.
But was it the same library? Was it the same person?
Again, we want to review that in a separate.
Hire those people that were the 9 employees that weren't doing what we wanted to do correctly.
So, any other closing comments? I think on that note, is there anything?
Well, I was just going to make a general comment. I appreciate the comment regarding policy if it's misfiled. I'm hoping that when we do come up with a formal policy, it's something that we're able to provide to the public and provide to our employees. And I think one of the things that would help more standardized that is to have good training for the employees and say these are our expectations and walking through examples that the public could hear and we can hear, then that would be the best.
If they wanted to change the date from the 1st.
I did. Our next regular meeting is scheduled for the 1st. I wanted to see if anybody would object if we changed it to the 8th. July 8th, it's the following Wednesday.
I take no issue with the change.
Sorry, what? Oh.
I'm okay.
She may, but
I need to check for the timing of the retreat that Asian Pacific.
okay, so we're going to tentatively reschedule that for July 8th. Then. Same time.
Location?
That we still have to determine. We'll know when we know. All right, well, on that note.
Turn to different libraries.
So, what is it exactly that the commission is supposed to do this evening? Is it just an informational
It's just an informational session. We were just supposed to hear the presentation and ask whatever questions. Correct.
An option? Yeah.
That's it. We were not supposed to form an opinion or take a vote or anything.
Run it by you.
We're Supervisor Haggerty's words were to run it by the ACLAC. So, there we go.
That meant a lot.
Yeah, we realize that.
All right, and on that note, we're going to close the meeting and adjourn it. Thank you.